All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Michelle Chen. Michelle is a journalist for outlets including In These Times and The Nation, which you can find at thenation.com. She is the co-host along with Sarah Jaffe of the podcast Belabored for Dissent magazine, all of which you can find on her Twitter, which is Michelle Chen. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Michelle, you actually have a really interesting piece recently up at The Nation about a new website that is essentially a Yelp for immigrant guest workers. It's actually a really, really cool idea. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we're used to thinking of the border as kind of this deserted, pretty low-tech frontier space, but it turns out that it's actually pretty ripe for technological innovation. And in sort of a disruptive technology kind of venture, this a design studio, these two progressive design groups teamed up, and it was Research Action Design and Studio Rev, and they teamed up with a group called Centro de los Derechos del Migrante, which is an advocacy group focused on protecting the rights of immigrant visa-based guest workers who come to the United States. So these are people who come on special work visas, and they might do agricultural work or they might work in canneries. They generally just come here for sort of temp seasonal jobs in a variety of industries. And they're linked into a pretty sophisticated network of recruitment agencies and other sorts of sketchy kind of manpower brokering that goes on in the transnational economy. It's very easy to get exploited if you're just kind of an individual trying to navigate all this stuff on your own, especially because you're so dependent on these agencies to get your visa stuff done, to get your papers ready, etc. So they're often tracked into these very exploitative situations, some of which could actually be legally considered labor trafficking cases. And what this group, Centro de los Derechos del Migrante, has done is they've created an app which basically allows people to rate their employers and their recruitment agencies the way that a consumer would with Yelp. And it's sort of using crowdsourcing as well as a bit of, maybe citizen journalism to create a network of these immigrants who would otherwise be in situations that might be very isolated. They might be cut off from social services here. They may not know the language. They're generally just in an unfamiliar place because they're working in a foreign country. So having this service there is a way for them, in the absence of, say, a union or, an advocacy group or a lawyer by their side, they can at least get some access to information they need to either maybe challenge their employer if they know that they're being exploited, or find resources that can help them escape that situation.
Well, just give a couple examples of what a really exploitive thing that could happen to some of these guest workers. Like what are some examples of, so people can have a kind of a concrete idea of what it's sort of like to be an immigrant guest worker in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, it should be noted that these are technically legal channels of employment, right? I mean, these aren't undocumented immigrants. It's the federal government coming in either through the Department of State or the Department of Labor and just saying, okay, we're going to let you in for this period of time, and you're going to be sponsored by such and such an employer. And basically, you're kind of indentured to that employer for the duration of your employment here. And, there are all sorts of ethical and labor issues that come with that, because you're basically tied to a single workplace and you kind of can't escape unless you want to risk becoming undocumented. So in this situation, you might work a variety of jobs. One of the most prominent examples of a really exploitative situation in recent years was these student guest workers who came through a special State Department program that was supposed to be for student cultural exchange. They thought they were coming for like a study abroad, kind of work study sort of thing over the summer. And they ended up working these factory jobs in a Hershey's candy processing plant in Pennsylvania. So it was a cultural exchange in a way. They got to see a certain side of U.S. society, but not the one they had bargained for, and certainly not the one that they had paid these exorbitant, agency fees to, it wasn't the kind of cultural experience they had in mind. So basically, I mean, they staged their own protests. They organized on their own, and they did a lot of it actually through social media. This became kind of a big viral campaign for this group called the National Guestworkers Alliance. So, they were able, as these young workers, to find the right resources to get their stuff together, to get lawyers to help defend them, and to escape from their situation. But of course, many workers are not able to do that. For instance, run-of-the-mill agricultural workers, people who come for landscaping, people who work in cannery jobs. Walmart has come under fire in recent years for importing these legions of workers to work in, Gulf area cannery plants, which basically pack seafood for them. And they're basically held in these slave-like conditions, forbidden from leaving the premises. And they're basically just, stuck in one place and shackled to a single employer who's making them work maybe, round the clock, just doing this grueling drudge work. And that, required a federal intervention in the end. And it was only through labor advocates sort of reaching out to them and organizing them directly in their workplaces that they were able to finally get some legal recourse for that. But, it was a huge struggle, and you have to wonder, there must be countless of these kinds of instances where workers do not get the help that they need. And so what this technology tries to do is, maybe in your workplace you don't have an organizer reaching out to you, or it's not safe to be seen talking to a labor organizer or an advocate from a local migrant workers center. So, but you can, flip on your phone, in the privacy of your own, work camp housing, and you can tap into this resource and maybe find out, you can find on this app, you can find sort of instructive manuals, like know your rights training kind of stuff. You can find contacts for nonprofit groups and federal regulators that can help you get out of your situation. And they also integrate these sort of fun interactive exercises. They have like comics that kind of demonstrate how to get out of an abusive situation and how to identify an exploitative situation and that sort of thing.